Hello and welcome to session 3 of our Fearful Symmetries Trail of Cthulhu campaign. My name is Lowell, pronouns he, him. This is a game of magicians fighting a secret war in England. And it's also a fairly improvisational game with a lot of material in the two books to go back. So you may hear me take a long pause as I go to do a search on things to make sure. And the players have a lot of room to decide which direction they want to go with. Now, to return back to a question we left off at the end of last time, it seems to me that we have two names that we have narrowed it down to like have a strong positive reaction amongst the list. And one is the Knights of Albion Transcendent. And then the other one is the Illuminated Knights of Albion Transcendent. Is there a strong preference from anyone between those two?
My view is that the longer and more convoluted, the more in keeping it is.
Okay.
So I suppose the Illuminated Knights of Albion Transcendent would be suited, would be pompous enough to satisfy Arthur.
Absolutely. Sherry is
Can we add eye roll to the end of that?
I mean, only if you're gonna add another 4 adjectives in there, please. Because yeah, it should definitely be. I mean, I'm surprised people didn't want to go for the Knightly Order of the Lightbringers of Albion Transcendent, reformed.
That's one where I'm old enough I would actually forget it each time we go to do this. So
yeah,
I'd have to keep a little card in my pocket.
Yes.
I did something similar for I'd called a cult the Breakers in another game, and then I off the top of my head came up with like a 20-word long thing, and then the players were like, "What was that called again?" And I was like, "The Breakers."
Yes.
Yeah.
About my working assumption is that Isabella, being a modern American woman, will somehow just shorten that. And that will become a point of friction with Arthur, I'm sure.
Yes.
That it loses power if you don't use all the words.
Well, Paul did point out that the abbreviation is ICAT.
Yeah,
so
exactly. Which was the first thing I noticed as well.
So last time you got some build points, so you have those. You can decide whether you want to spend those or not. And because it is sort of a case break for that, you may reset all of your abilities back up to their starting value.
With the exception of magic.
Well,
with the
that's what I
exception of
wanted to
magic.
ask about. Because I think we've established that. So I was rereading it in Fearful Symmetries, and to me, it's not very clear, but it seemed to be that you use magic to build. You use those 4 sources of power to build your magic points, but you refresh them when you rest, I think was what it said. But
yeah, what I'm and it's sort of contradictory. Right now, the way I'm going to say is assuming that like you have time and space and we can narrate a scene of you returning to the area and going down there to take some time, you can refresh it, and basically a hand wave scene, provided you have access. And once you have other sites, we can kind of wave that off.
Cool. And it's 1 for 1 so we refresh all of our stability as well. Is that right?
So investigative and general abilities, and you can refresh your stability and health. We'll assume that maybe a few days have passed while you've been handling things kind of after that. Does that seem fair?
Seems perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sort of assuming that we're going to spend those, at the moment, those intermediary periods at Crispina's house in Oxford.
That seems fair. Also, just remind you, after start, those things that were 2 for 1 are back to 1 for 1 build points after creation, I believe.
Hmm. Your occupation skills are only valid at character creation rather than ongoing. Cool.
Yeah.
I mean, strangely, I've met someone may have raised their health score. I don't know why. Someone might do that. Such a thing.
Yeah, and I do think health is capped at 15, I think.
Yeah, maximum health is 15.
Which is why our healthy I have a picture of Dr. Arthur Whitewood going to the pool, in the gymnasium and doing the swim there.
I'm sure there's some bit of, I can't remember which, is it the Thames that runs through Oxford? I can't remember. And swimming, in the shadow of the colleges.
Mm-hmm. And he probably rode, I'm assuming. Yeah. So we will take Wilfred off to the side, like put him out. He's given a reasonable excuse for what he's working on. So for purposes of this, he is safe, so you don't have to worry about where he's at, but he is off from this. I might do a love letter thing for him next time to kind of fill that in.
Yeah, I noticed that last session I think he used it with one of his build points to raise his occult. So perhaps our starting hand waviness could be leaving poor Mr. Brumble in the library to his own studies, right? As he traces it with his finger across the pages.
I like that. Let me, in this sort of, you have a few days of downtime where you're taking care of life business and so on. Let's go with Dr. Whitewood. Who is the person in your life that you kind of go back to talk with, or that you communicate with regularly, who is an important figure in your life?
Yeah, I've identified Emmeline Whitewood, my wife, as a source of stability. And I know I have more than one to define, but that I think is the one I want to kick off with. Mm-hmm. Played in this series by Judi Dench, of course.
Okay.
Who else would play Ian McKellen's wife?
Right.
And so yes, Emmeline, I think.
And what's Emmeline's background? Is she kind of staunchly middle class, perhaps, like yourself, or does she come from money or something else?
I think she's probably socially above me.
Okay.
I think probably she's, that kind of gentry, that kind of land holding, but not significant nobility. So I think she's probably the daughter of Sir David Barrett. No, Barrett's too working class. Sir David Barrell, who probably holds, has a manor house and some paddocks in Sussex or somewhere in the home counties. And I think that Emmeline was one of those early women to study medicine.
Okay.
So I think we may well have met at medical school.
Is she, I assume that she's not working.
No, she isn't now.
So what is it that she devotes her time to? There's a certain stereotype of causes and projects and things. So what do you think she's working towards right now?
Yeah, I think good causes. I think that probably she helps out at we're in the early mid-30s, as I remember.
Yeah, early 30s.
So I think there's still a significant amount of unemployment and disadvantage floating around in London. And so I think probably she helps with a soup kitchen. She may well, subsidize some of that from her own private means. And otherwise espouses good causes. Perhaps she has a small salon of sorts where, like-minded women of conscience gather together to discuss the wrongs, the ills that beset the country and how they might do something about it.
So do you return to London, or do you call her? What do you think you do?
I suppose it depends what our plan is. If we're going to be if we're going to have several days, then I think I'll go back to London and arrange to meet the others. But if we're talking about spending a night in Oxford and then setting off somewhere else, then I would
Let's
probably
assume a few days to give your
Fine.
chance, since this has changed so drastically. You can get your affairs in order and all of that.
It makes sense if we're refreshing stability
Yeah.
to at least spend some time with that pillar of stability.
So this is the first time that you return to London, and Richard, Miss Grimaldi, who needs to put her name in the chat thing. If either of you return or go to London during this time, this is the first time that you've gone to London since you became initiated. And we'll assume you take the train back in, just for the purposes of this. And there is a moment where, when you are on the train and you are traveling in, and you pass some boundary into London as it's understood as London, that you will feel a wave of exhaustion hit you. And you will feel a dimming of that fire of magic within you, as if it is that the city itself does something, suppresses it, consumes it, changes it, whatnot, and it's striking to you. Doesn't have any long-term effect, and you still have that magic point, but you can definitely feel that there is something about London itself that impacts the magic.
Am I right in thinking that somewhere we've either in something that we found at Crispina's, or something that she might have told us, or someone's told us, that London was a dangerous place for her?
Yes, that's in that letter to Crispina.
So it is. I suppose then that my first inclination is my goodness me, I feel this too.
Mm-hmm.
And it worries me.
When you return back and you come home, and your wife has returned back, and we'll assume at breakfast the next day, she will ask, how were things? How is Miss Weiberg?
Oh, I think probably it won't take until the following day. I think as soon as I get home, because I was enormously excited by
Right.
everything that's happened. I mean, slightly intimidated by it, but excited by the reality of it. And so we'll have set out to share that with her. But then this dampening, this draining, this graying that I've sensed since arriving back in London will have taken the edge off that. And I think that the conversation will be less about enthusiasm and more about concern. Because I can't imagine I'm going to keep many secrets from Emmeline.
What do you like? Do you tell her literally what you saw, or are you coaching that in anything?
I don't think we keep secrets.
Okay.
I think that I respect her opinion. I think that she knows that these are my interests. She may, I won't have just said I'm going to Oxford for a conference. I think I will have told Emmeline that I am going to be inducted into a society which will allow me to do the things we've always talked about doing.
What do you think is the interpersonal spend that you need to make because what you're describing is a little far-fetched. What do you think it is that to convince her that it's either the truth, or that it's a truth that you perceive and understand, what do you think that is?
I think that's reassurance.
All
I
right.
think there's a no-brainer there. It's reassurance. It's reassurance that, you know, you mustn't worry about this. You know, we've sought a variety of, we've begun to find out what's going on under the surface of the world, Emily. And you'll be safe. I'll be safe. Don't worry. You know, I'm thinking about what happened to Richard, and I think probably I
Right.
have downplayed the fact that he was thrown 20 feet across a stone circle.
And I think that night is about kind of convincing her and bringing her around to see your vision for the world, how things. But I do think it's the next day that she has clearly thought about it, and she's like, so Miss Weiberg is missing.
Temporarily, yes.
And you hinted that something had happened to one of your colleagues when you went to the Stones.
Oh, Frazier is a rash young man, but I think he's learned his lesson. I think he understands that to tamper with this power that we've begun to explore is potentially a really dangerous thing. Only potentially, dear.
Will you be tampering with said power?
Oh, Emmeline, you know me better than that. I'm a scientist, damn it. I intend to explore it, and I intend to, much as the physicists are doing now, in exploring the characteristics of the atom. I want to explore this so we can shape it and use it to the benefit of the country. And my God, we need it.
You will recall what happened to the Curies, also scientists, also exploring a hitherto unknown area.
Of course. But we've learned lessons since then. And those are the lessons I intend
we have
to
learned lessons, but not lessons about what it is that you are engaged in.
But in terms of approaches, to take approaches that are low risk, that involve careful exploration, not rash exploration.
You described your friend Richard, Mr. Fraser, as perhaps rash. You were a little more sketchy about the other two members. What is your impression of was Miss? Is it Miss?
Yes, Miss Grimaldi.
Miss Grimaldi.
I mean, she's an American, dear, and that sums up so much. But
we must forgive her more sins.
Indeed, it's not her fault where she was born. But I think you'd like her, actually. I thought we might invite her to tea.
Certainly, I would enjoy that meeting. I would like to know who it is that you are associating with, an unattached young American woman.
Oh, Emmeline.
Appearances.
I appreciate that. I think if anyone saw us together, they would assume that Miss Grimaldi and Frazier were much more akin in spirit and age.
But you said that Fraser, you thought that he had some attachment to Miss Weiberg that perhaps went beyond the professional.
Oh, no, sorry. If I created that impression, that wasn't my intention. No. I think that Fraser is just he's just a rash young man who's quickly learned his lesson, I think.
She'll nod in that way that says that perhaps she is more adept at reading the dynamic. And Mr. Brumble was a previous patient?
Yes, long ago, at the back end of the war. I mean, Brumble is the salt of the earth. He is all that one would wish of the working class. He is noble in the way in which he bears some of the burdens that he faces.
He's not a communist, is he?
Do you know, I don't think Brumble would know what communism was.
Perhaps I just thought I would ask.
I mean, I'm not sure I'd want to invite him to tea.
Understood. And she says, and you plan to return to Oxford then?
Well, I think I'll tell her whatever we've agreed.
Okay, like in a few days.
Yeah. Yes, certainly. We will pursue the question of where Miss Weiberg has disappeared to.
Well, I will see to your mail, and I will check our calendar and rearrange things.
That's so kind of you. Thank you. Yes, I see. Well, we do have a dinner appointment, don't we? Damn.
I'm going to cut away from that. Miss Grimaldi, who is it that we have you talking with during this downtime, and where are they?
Well, that's a good question. I think,
Is it your father, or is it an English friend, or is it somebody else? Is it a fellow stage magician, or?
yeah, I think that what it is probably a technician, like another person who does, what do you say, stage props and things like that. That, like, she has a trick that she's been working on, and she's essentially has gone to consult with him on, like, one of the things they struggle with is getting hardware that's small enough but powerful enough to do the whatever it is that they need and things like that. So yeah, so she's probably meeting with someone else who is another technician of sorts.
Someone you've corresponded with over time. Older, younger, about your age?
One of the things that she's found since coming to England is that all of the people that she has corresponded with are always much older than she expects them to be.
Okay.
If that makes any sense. In LA, it's not that so much. So yeah. So.
And what is their name?
Oh, that's a great question. Let's see here. Well, we haven't got it's let's see, probably a Robert, and what was the name that was too common? Barrett. Yeah, like Robert Barrett.
Okay. And Robert is likewise perhaps a little shocked at how young you are,
Yes.
and how American you are.
Yes.
But he will ask, like, what do you tell him? You do the shop talk. I imagine he's played by Michael Caine from The Prestige. Who is the mechanic in that, and we get that sort of workshop set up. Slightly dusty windows, lots of things around, lots of pigeon feathers and dove feathers around and about. So once you talk shop, you've worked through the trick. He says, "So what is it that you're occupied with here?" I'm not going to do a Michael Caine,
right? Exactly.
Here in England.
And she steps out. She goes, "Just a minute," and she'll go and she'll get that book out of the of all of the little stories, the supernatural stories, and she goes, "I'm researching the aesthetic of old magic in around here, so that if my father adds some repertoire, and I don't even know if he'll do it while he's in London, but when he goes back to America, he would bring that back with him as a change to some of the things. So I'm working through all of these things," and she sort of opens this up and she reads a few of them. She goes, "They're so dusty, though."
Kind of flips through that, and he will say, "You should be careful with this sort of thing. There are places here where people take these things seriously.
Really?
Places, smaller venues where these kinds of tales and signs are as real to them as anything else. And if you take it back to America, that's not a problem. But be aware here that there are people for whom this is their reality, their world.
And she goes, you say they're performing?
No, I mean, just before the war, when I was on tour with let me get a good name here. The great Zarconi. He had put in a few references to the Fae and fairies and had some tricks made up to look like that. And we were at the tail end of the tour, and we were at, well, the tour hadn't gone well, so we were at the dog's end of some shows, and we were in a smaller venue. And when those things were called up there, this would have been just outside Mayfield. We nearly had a riot.
Yeah.
People reacted very, very strongly. I remember that quite clearly. Afterwards, there was a mistress from the girls' school who came up and gave us an earful for some time. But I didn't mind it because it was clear that she was the one who had kind of talked everyone down from doing what everyone does with a performer who has the double stigmata of playing with the Fae and presumably being Italian. So.
And she goes, all right, I will keep that in mind. She goes, it is sort of fascinating. And she does kind of flip through. She goes, I can't tell. Is it like from place to place that they're friend or foe? Or are they always foe, but sometimes beautiful?
It depends. They are friend or foe in these things, depending on the day and the time, depending on the gifts you brought, depending on what trespass you've made or not, how they are approached. There are a few things that are always a threat. The black dogs that walk along the path, that sort of thing. But many things are more ambiguous.
Mm.
And I will cut away from you. Richard, where do you spend your time? You said you have an office here in Oxford that you work out of. There's a firm in Oxford, or is it in London?
I think that Richard is from Oxfordshire,
Mm-hmm.
but works. No, I think I said that we had like a townhouse in one of the towns, right? I think at one point,
Mm-hmm.
like an office out here. I think that's where he's normally based. Is the sort, but I think that they are a branch of a London legal firm.
Okay.
But there are offices down in London.
What is the name of the two names, the something and something firm?
The Harrison and Cheetham. Harrison and Cheetham, the firm is the firm.
They make lots of jokes about the Cheetham there as well.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it that you do? Who is it that you interact with? Is it a family member? Is it someone from the firm? Is it your agent? Is it a lover? Who is that?
Yeah, I think it is in fact my brother Michael, who is a mathematics tutor at a prestigious school, who was wounded in the leg at Ypres, and is a far more down to earth chap than Richard is.
So a tutor, do you imagine, like, maybe are we talking something like an Oxford, Cambridge tutor, or are we talking somebody who is dealing with younger persons, like the teens?
I think he's dealing with the teens. I think
Okay.
he's a whatever. I can't keep track of the London universities and colleges because there's
Right.
about a bit of them and they're all like old.
Is he a disciplinarian? Is he one of the liberal instructors? Like, what's the caricature that the students have for him?
Oh, he's definitely a disciplinarian. He's a man who has a 1,000-yard stare that extends all the way from the north side of the Thames over no man's land into Ypres.
Okay. And so when you go to see him, what is it you tell him? Is he older or younger? You said older?
He's older, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he's about, I don't know, less than a decade, more than a few years. He was old enough to have served and been right there in the thick of it. And I think that I think that Richard largely pays him a visit because he worries about his older brother, because his older brother is prone to bouts of melancholy and black ill humor and stuff like that. Yeah, and I think maybe his older brother's married, but like it's one of those things where the agreement between his sister-in-law and Richard is like they'll both keep an eye on Michael and make sure he doesn't descend too far into these boys. They'll all be sent up into the meat grinder. You watch kind of attitudes.
And I imagine it's autumn, so we probably have a scene of you and your brother walking with coats outside, and he says, I heard you went up to Oxford. What were you doing there? More of your esoterica?
Well, I know how much you love it, dear brother. But yes, if you must know, I was there visiting my dear friend Crispina and some of the others. And yes, we're about our works.
Your works.
Yes, I know. You'll indulge my fancy.
To a point.
They appear to be showing some fruit. Yes, most
and what particular fruit grows from such an occult vine?
Oh, great and powerful things, dear brother. Something which I hope may do some good for this, for this nation, for our people, for all of us. But such things are never simple. Of course, in any such thing, there are always those who would stand against you, who would complicate things, and who would. And he flashes back to Jenny Greenteeth, flashes across his mind, and who would eat you up whole if they were given the chance.
There was another march by the Fascist Union this weekend that you missed.
And I take it you were down there. Yes. Brick in hand, one assumes.
They preach a good line, and there are young people who are taken in, and they will have us. They will have us. It kind of like trails off and says, "Don't understand." They have such enthusiasms; they've forgotten everything. They think that this is all fun and games, but it is not where this leads.
Who can blame them, brother? When our betters and our superiors call this all but a great game, how can we blame those for believing it? You've obviously you've seen the real price that's paid for this game, and he looks down self-consciously at his brother's mangle. I think we're both walking with canes, because I think that the reason that Richard has a cane in the first place was to help his brother feel less self-conscious about having to walk with a cane himself. But
And
yes,
do you remember my fellow from the unit, Busby?
yes, I think I do. Yes, short man. Yes. Is he in good health? Is he visiting?
He he stepped out into the road in front of a car. There's almost no rules these days for these joyriders, and so many people killed, and the auto manufacturers rail against any kind of regulation. That a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit is lunacy. That's too fast for mortal man to travel. But
one wonders whether the human body can take such a speed.
Imagine the like what happens when one has to come to a complete stop from such a thing.
Wow.
It's I had heard about this, and I reached out to his widow, and he had been in a dark mood prior to that. And I think he left his wife with the specter that he may have taken his own life in this.
Well, I suppose one can't. Well, one cannot blame the dead for their means of exiting, can they? It's too late now. And how are you feeling, brother?
Pause, and he said, given what you are part of, you think you cannot blame the dead?
Blame? Not those who have, not the dead for the act of taking their own lives, for they are already there where they've already paid the price there. But converse, well, that may be a possibility. Confirm. That is what you're asking, brother. I would warn you that. Do you feel there is an answer you wish to have there?
Let us talk of other things.
Indeed. Well, the old country was lovely, of course, and whittles on about the roads and the things,
Right.
and the new pavement, and haven't been back to Oxford for some time, etc., etc. And you will also mention, though, but London itself seems to have changed since that journey. It, for the first time, I feel the weight of it sit upon me.
Really?
Yes, do you not feel it?
It's
It's as though
London.
yes,
It is
yes.
as it always is.
I do not know. Maybe it was a mistake to breathe fresh air again. I fear this choked almost, weighed down by something. I'm sure I'll return to my normal spirits soon.
Hmm. And I do think like this is the kind of talk that maybe he does, and I think he kind of furrows his brow when he hears you say that, and perhaps that actually weirdly shifts his mood to maybe a little concern for you.
Oh yeah, I'd love it if he, we're walking down the Thames, right, and he pulls me into the pub that's underneath the Hammersmith, that's next to the Hammersmith Bridge, and we nip in for a pint of Fuller's.
Excellent. And so we'll cut from there to everything reset to the group gathered back in Oxford. And if we also, given that several days passed, if you want to flash back to having done any kind of we can do that kind of thing, like having access to libraries or people to talk to or things like that. We can also flash back to that. But I think it's the four of you gathered together with Wilfred, poring over the books to gain the knowledge, but talking about what are next steps. Talking about what you learn from Jenny Greenteeth and the names that you have to decide where you wish to head to next. So let's come to that discussion. I think it's fair, just because of his personality, that we have come into the scene with Dr. Whitewood speaking when we do.
Arthur sees it as his natural function to chair the meeting, and even has an agenda written down, which he works his way through. He suggests, first of all, can we confirm that we are describing ourselves as discussed?
Well, it is the name that Crispina put forward to us. We are the Illuminated Knights of Albion Transcendent, of course.
Anyone want to speak against that? And the meeting will proceed in that sort of slightly officious manner.
One thing is that Richard will have bought a bag of coffee from Soho. Will have, as best as he can manage, using this rather fangled contraption that they gave him as well to prepare it by offer Miss Grimaldi a coffee.
She is super pleased, and then when she drinks the coffee, she sort of slows way down, and it's like, oh, I'll have to show you how you do this.
Yes, I think it's one of those Italian espresso making, like things, and maybe he's put the grounds in the top as well as in the bottom, so
There's sort of soupiness to it.
It's a little grainy.
Yes, well, I mean, I'm afraid I'm rather partial to the Turkish stuff myself, and this seemed rather the same consistency, but not quite. Anyway, I'll leave it with the expert next time.
Arthur is rather disappointed with Brumble's tea making, because I'm not sure. I think the nettle tea that he seems to have purloined from the garden is.
I think it's more likely that he's used the tea several times.
Yes,
just for frugality, and
very frugal.
You're on third batch at this point of something.
But yes, I think Arthur will seek to run the meeting in a what he considers to be a very democratic and open way, ensuring everyone has a chance to put their point of view, but ensuring we don't waste any time. But yes, I mean, it's in terms of, item 4, next steps. And he will, in a tedious manner, lay out the contents of the letters we found, the information we have. But he will he will wish to add to that the question of Edgar Winthrop. We understand Edgar Winthrop to have been Crispina's mentor, guide, tutor. Do we know anything else about him?
At this point, no, you will have been, and I think we established this before, that you were familiar that this person was Crispina's mentor, and I think you probably have some idea of where to track them down.
Well, I wondered if that would fit a flashback to London, just checking the London directory, for instance, and seeking out anyone called Edgar Winthrop.
Absolutely. Do you have let's see, it's not library use in this game.
I was thinking I might make a contact who is a scurrilous journalist. Who
Okay.
could perhaps be a person for such a thing. So I think if I do contacts right, like if I want him to be a really useful contact, it'd be more than a 1 point spend, wouldn't it? It'd be like a 2, maybe,
Yeah.
would be better.
Yeah. But imagine that it's much like your investigative spends. Like they're pretty strong.
Yeah.
Let me find.
But that becomes almost his pool, from what I remember, right? Like the 2 points get assigned to Eddie Haas, and then like to my journalist contact, right? Like if I remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let me.
Eddie the Mouth.
Eddie the Mouth. Hang on 1 second. Let me find Mr. Winthrop here in the thing. You will actually find, I think, and I don't imagine that this is a spend, that checking through that Mr. Winthrop actually lives in Oxford, or rather Oxfordshire. He has a cottage in Abington. I'm probably saying that wrong, much less many of the other things.
Right.
Oxfordshire. Sorry. I was correct on this last time, my Americanism.
Sure. Probably more than anything else. Oxfordshire.
Abingdon was spot on.
Yeah.
Okay. But that, yeah, so he is reasonably nearby.
I just want to say, I actually think calling everywhere a shire really adds to the feeling that I'm in, a fantastical setting. Yes, I do think it would be good to pay Mr. Winthrop a visit. He is perhaps our last lead here in Oxfordshire, other than perhaps Mrs. Wentworth, who we have also not spoken to, who may be able to shed some light on any visitors that Miss Weiberg had beforehand. Beyond that, there's Ashby Wake. And of course, and he pulls out his copy of the New Jerusalem, with many notes and everything, and he says, if we were to follow the words of Miss Damon and he shudders, Miss Greenteeth, each of these would be a link.
And she laughs when he so rude.
We had to seek out places of power and allies, and the ley lines are places of power. Perhaps if we know that who our enemies struck at us through the ley lines. It occurs to me that if we were to follow that northwards, perhaps it would lead us towards them, as well as helping, as well as enabling us to secure such places of power for our own work. What is the saying? Two birds with one stone, I believe.
But I thought they struck us from off the ley lines. Specifically, they came in, and she sort of said, that was my impression.
I believe it was that we connected our node to the ley lines, and they struck at us via the Rollright stone
No.
line.
No.
Just to correct that, I do want to correct this. I think if you had any directional sense of where that was, and I think given the damage that you take, I'm going to give you this, that wherever that emanated from lay to the south.
Oh. Hmm. Hmm. So the initial strike came at us from the north.
No, so the initial strike, like you felt the line of power, like it reached to the Rollright stones when you connected up, almost as if you were completing a circuit, like when you did that. That's what that first emanation of power was.
Mhm.
But then this force, the red dragon, seemed to come in from outside and reach into the ley line. Now, when you connected to the stone and you asked where Crispina was, your consciousness fled southwards, and then we were struck. So just to give you kind of the geomancy of it.
Yeah, but the theory of tracing the ley line is not a non-starter. So sure you were right.
There are multiple ley lines that cross through. So
yeah, well, which was my thinking of, like, if you trace it up to here, then you get to a node, and then you know the whole conspiracy board thing, right? But in ley line style. But apparently, our enemy is able to go from outside of that pinboard mechanism, so therefore not quite as the south, however, is where we know that Lord Portmere resides, south of Oxford, I believe.
True.
Yeah. So I think I'm in agreement with Mr. Whitewood that Winthrop, and I would say Windworth, the two local leads, are the most actionable and less likely to sprawl into something of their own scale, essentially, right? Because they're a conversation rather than a knock on the door at Ashby Wake and go, "So I hear you've been having problems with the beast," kind of situation. But Miss Grimaldi, what are your feelings upon the our next movements?
And she's like, I am all for helping people and gaining power. We could use some allies. I do think at Ashby Wake he had some papers that Crispina wanted, and she was looking into the Red Dragon. So those may have been the inquiries she was making. But I'd say overall, your agenda seems fine.
Yes, I would say after Winthrop and Whitwood, perhaps Ashby Wake is our next port of call. And he's peering over, like, the letters as well, that we got from and he's looking at her and he's saying, but this mysterious person E, the Comte Saint Ledoux, who Portmere took the Comte's ward into his circle, and this dice. At some point, we must inquire further upon those, I feel. If they were of significance to this E, then they were of significance to Miss Weiberg, and Portmere is the death of this Comte and his ward. This circle, a rival circle working against our own, could be. But so much conjecture. Forgive me. We must focus upon the task at hand, of course, as he looks shamefacedly at Mr. Whitewood's agenda on the board. I apologize, Doctor. We have not entered any
Arthur very, very, very clearly notes any other business to be dealt with at our next meeting.
Let's do this. We've got like two local leads, which we'll play out. Let's take our first break here. Take 10. We'll come back and we'll do those scenes and then see where we go to next. So I think we can cut to the easier one of the two, which is the housekeeper. I think that it's no problem for you to, get into get entry. You are people of the world. Might have met her a couple of times, and she kind of tuts a bit when she's there, and maybe like doesn't want to talk badly about Miss Winthrop, but she says she was out of sorts. Let's she kept doing things with her diet and such. And she's talking about this, and you realize that some of what she's talking about are the various preparations and so on. But it was about a month ago that she started doing things with spending time with Alice, the maid, and giving Alice permission to shirk her duties. And, it's a household. I was hired with the understanding that I would have someone to help me. And with her strangeness and Alice not helping, I gave my notice. And I thought that when I did, perhaps Miss Christina might have said something, but she did not. She simply took the notice as if it didn't matter a whit that I was leaving. And so I left, and I've been looking about at the employment agencies to see where else a woman of my skill should have no problem finding another occupation.
This is must have been terribly difficult for you. Do you have an address for Alice?
I think she's up with her sister, and it's outside of town. I can't remember what the name, but it is a not in Oxford,
but near enough for us to make an excursion without having to kind of travel miles and miles.
And there were no visitors, Miss Whitwood?
Her usual friends, and she names the circle that that she said. There was that woman who came by before Christina went down to London. That very posh woman, but she runs a shop here in Oxford, of Von Spal. I think her family is Dutch, but there are people that are posh and have a right to be, and there are people that are not. But she stopped by. I don't know what they discussed. She did not stay long, but that's the only person outside of her usual acquaintances that I can imagine. Oh, I'm getting somebody's echo here.
That's probably me. Sorry.
Okay, this guy. And she'll kind of. But besides that, I couldn't say of someone that struck me as unusual.
You say she is a shopkeeper, shop owner, shop? What kind of shop?
Sort of gallery or something in town.
Thank you, Mrs. Whitewood. I think yes.
And she will say, then she'll kind of pause and she will say, Matt, I'd heard from a friend who spoke with another person who heard from a person on the force that something had occurred with Miss Christina, maybe?
She's gone away for several days. We might be staying at her house intermittently.
But may I ask why it is that you three have come to inquire about her?
Well, as much to inquire about you, my dear lady, as her. I rather hoped you might come back and look after the house while we're out and about, so to speak.
What do you think is the right interpersonal skill to convince this person to give you a housekeeper who can clean up the house, prepare better tea than Wilford, and
even cook?
It can even cook.
I think.
Is that credit rating?
I think it comes down to credit rating because I think, one would have to pay her.
Right. She will say, oh, but only for the time that you are there. I am still quite angry with Miss Christina. So when she returns,
we're an agency to find you another place. Of course, we'd quite accept that it would be entirely up to you whether you took it or not. And yeah, I don't think I've reported her missing. I think I've reported her away, and that we're staying there.
Yeah.
So as not to have the neighbors get a little kind of concerned when strangers keep turning up.
Right. And
I
certainly
think
that's the kind of gossip that would have gotten back to her.
And it'll look all the more normal if her housekeeper is keeping house. So I can't remember how credit rating works.
Just make a spend on right now for it. So you can finish up with her.
And I, as soon as we walk out, I go, and someone's gonna have to clean up the library. Because if she sees that, there's gonna be gossip everywhere.
That's a very good point. Yes. Perhaps perhaps that's what Rumble's doing.
Yes. You ring him and ask him to clean up the library.
I hope that we can have sketched that ritual circle before he kind of erases it.
That seems fair. Absolutely. And so you will travel to see her mentor then, right?
Yeah,
I go see the Von Spa woman.
I want to split up.
Yes, I want to.
I want to send Isabella to the gallery. Richard and I can toss a coin between Edgar and Alice.
I would like to ask Sherry, where would you like to go? You want to go to the gallery?
I would love to go to the gallery. So
yeah. I thought that's what you'd said already, but I just wanted to double check before we divide our resources. So yeah, I think that the more keeping thing is that if perhaps I went to go see Alice, because I think we established that I'm a bit more familiar with Crispina and her house and everything beyond our society. So I'll be more familiar with Alice the maid as well, as opposed to,
I think you may also be less intimidating.
Yes, yeah. It may be more proper for Dr. Arthur Whitewood to go there, but it may be more profitable for Richard Fraser to go there.
So let's start with Isabella, and then we'll do Richard, and then we'll come to Arthur. So you will look it up, and you will see that Melody von Spall is listed as an art dealer.
Mm-hmm.
And when you head to the shop, It's very nicely appointed. It is done up to appeal to certainly the wealthy. There are one or two good-looking Oxford undergraduates working there, and like, how do you introduce yourself? How do you gain an appointment with Miss von Spall?
I think I give my card. And it has, all of this sort of like the London theater that my father's at and all that stuff, kind of on it, like, so that I'm like come down from London. But I will, when I hand it over, I will say that Crispina suggested I stop by.
And the student will take the card back, and after a little bit, this 6 foot tall in heels, platinum blonde, very well dressed woman will come out. She has a little bit of that sort of rounded face that she's tried to make more angular and striking with makeup. But she comes out. She has a cigarette with her that is held in a way that tells you it's an affectation. And she will come out, and she looks at you and she says, I think you may have been misinformed as to the kinds of things that we sell here, dear lady.
Why is that?
We don't deal in bric-a-brac or knickknacks and that kind of thing, or theatrical dressings.
And she sort of steps and says, Crispina suggested I come to speak to you.
Really?
Yes.
And there's a little frostiness there. Like, you will realize that she does not hold Crispina in great opinion.
Really? And she goes, and I guess I will look around me here. What you said, it's all to appeal to the wealthy? Is there anything of note here?
What do you think is the appropriate thing? Is this like an
thing.
art history or an occult or something?
Yeah, it should be a cult would be what I'm looking for.
Okay.
That's how she would be relevant to me. So I will make a spend on that. I don't know. How about 2?
No, 1 spend is enough.
1 spend. Okay. Yeah. I'm never sure with this stuff.
He will walk around, and she's definitely aiming for a particular set of people. And
which I recognize because we also try to make things appeal to those people, right?
But I do think that you will see sort of in the back, there is a slightly out of place set of religious statuary. Looks like might be Anglican, might be, old Christian sets of pieces that are kind of off to the side, not out in more public view, and they are striking to you. Like, they're very different from anything else that she has here.
And I think that's when she gets there. She turns around like she's found it. She looks at her and she goes, oh, I see. She goes, well, would you tell me about these pieces? And it's like, well,
her
Isabella has like, been just like it's frosty to her frosty. It's when she finds this that she goes, oh, now I see. Does that make any sense?
Okay. So there is a change in her mood. and she would say, these caught your eye. These are some unusual pieces of historical significance. There are a number of theologians and those with particular faith in the area who've purchased these kinds of objects. And she'll kind of walk through the history of them. What do you want to do to kind of read what these are about, or what she's about, or whatnot?
I think I'm probably gonna go with, I mean, interrogation sounds rude, but it really is just the art of questioning. So I do think that, like, now that I found it, I'm gonna walk her through that thread of questions just to go like, where is this? It's that sort of thing of going, Crispina understands that, the both of us would recognize the import of this, even if neither of us, have close ties to her. So it's that sort of thing of walking through that.
Sure.
But what I'm trying to do is actually get back to what her relationship was with Crispina, and if anything, what was delivered, or what that point was, if that makes any sense.
There are make that spend,
I did.
and I think you're going to get a couple of things.
Okay.
Let's start with like the answer to the question you get is that Crispina had asked about a book, Le Dragon Rouge, and Miss von Spall had, through her contacts, found that there was a copy in London, and there's a sense there that she had expected that Crispina would buy something, like kind of this was all tied up, and that she would find where the book was, Crispina would buy something, and the sense is that Crispina didn't.
Oh.
But the thing is, as you're going to go through this, these pieces are nice. They're beautiful. They're very striking. They're made to catch the eye. But the thing that will strike you is this woman is hungry for you to buy one of these. In an unusual way, in a way that you find a little off-putting. And I think maybe when she realizes she's kind of pushed a little bit too far, her manner will turn from that kind of obsequious back to that kind of cold, frosty, distant.
Interesting. Yeah, and I think there is that thing where as soon as it does it, Isabella goes right back to mirroring that. But she does just to kind of tweak her, sort of look back sadly at those religious figures, like maybe she might have, and then she'll be like, well, thank you very much.
Before you leave, she does say, this piece, I had a buyer, but they had opted not to, and certainly I would like to move it along. And she names a oddly discounted price for it.
Gee, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna spend another occult point on that. What is she trying to tie me to?
There is something with this statue. I think you have that little bit of magic now, and I think that you can sense that it is shackled, it is tied to something unpleasant, and that she would love for you to have this.
Oh. She goes, it is lovely. She goes, but I just don't have anywhere to put it. Then I'll leave.
All right. And she is disappointed, but she will let you go without further pressing.
Yeah, those things though, we're going to have to destroy them.
Let us come then to this. Let me quickly find the page here. Oh, oh. Sorry. Ooh. Sorry. Close that. Now, please. There we go. Just so I get the right location and such for her.
Apologies to anyone who was disrupted by me and Alan playing around with Miro just then.
So you will have to travel up to Rye, which, given my paltry lack of knowledge of England, I'm unsure where that is relative to Oxford, but we'll say it is within a distance. And you will see that she's staying with her sister, Mary. This is a woman who essentially does takes in the laundry and cares for 3 children. Her husband is a river pilot, so gone for a great deal of time. And
she's in Rye. I'd say this is a day trip out for Richard easily, because Rye is actually on the south coast of England.
Okay.
So it's on the other side of London, essentially.
All right. So you will track her down, and eventually, some talking and maybe a few coin, and she will direct you to. She will tell you that her sister arrived, was very upset, and she's working at a local cinema, taking tickets, and you can find her there.
Thank you. Yes, it'd be good to speak to Alice again, though. Maybe a possibility of more work for her. Bring some money in.
All right.
Yeah, I will head over to the cinema.
Okay. Small, movie house, cinema. Of course, one screen here, and we'll assume it's between shows. So she's behind the little glass partition there when you arrive, and she'll look up when you come, and she will say, next feature doesn't start for an hour and a half.
And when does your break begin, Alice? It's Mr. Fraser. You remember from Miss Wyberg's house?
She goes pale, like the blood drains from her face. Uh, yes, Mr. Fraser. Yes.
Yes. As much as oh, the mousetrap again. Uh, no,
Oh, they were in a counterfactual world if they have a film of the mousetrap.
Oh yeah. Well, that was the conceit of the movie, wasn't it? The one that just
Yes.
came out. See how they run. Yeah. So like yeah, I will say. Well, I would. I know you are busy and you are working, and I would hate standing in between you and your employer. But perhaps if I could, well, if we could, I could treat you to a meal, and we could discuss what happened with Miss Wyberg at the house. It's rather a mystery to some of us, and while we know that you've no part to play in this, you may be able to help us. And I know how much she cared for you.
What is the spend that you want to make to
I
get
think
her out and into place?
I think this is 100% reassurance because ultimately what I'm trying to convey to her is like whatever you tell us, and like one of the major reasons why it's Richard Fraser coming to do this is the fact that like there will be no consequences for you. You know, like there'll be no you are safe from this, and I will do everything in my power to make all of this as frictionless as possible for you. So no dragging you away while your boss is over your shoulder kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
She will say, let me talk to the boy, and I can give you maybe a half hour. You can get a cuppa across the road.
Yes, cup of tea and perhaps a sandwich, and all on my bill, of course.
And I think we cut to her. There is that reassurance. She agrees to go, but once she's actually seated here across from you, you can tell that she's very nervous about things. And she will say, like, if I tell you what about this, like, you can't repeat this, you can't get this out. If people hear about this, I mean, how am I ever going to get another job? I mean, I enjoyed being a housemaid. I'd like to do that again, but if anyone speaks against me, you or someone else, then uh, I don't know how that's possible. It's not like I've got great opportunities.
Oh, I think that's wrong. And I was just looking at my sheet and realized I would actually like to keep my point of reassurance and instead spend a point of flattery because it does say you can also do it to get them to reveal information, perform minor favors, regard you as trustworthy. And
Okay.
so I think taking a young woman out for a sandwich and a cup of tea, charming man from London, you know, and then I can that point of reassurance for more serious things down the line. But in any case, then I'll say, oh,
Yeah.
I think all of the opportunities in the world could be yours, Alice. And you need not worry about me or. I mean, I think your biggest concern perhaps maybe Miss Whitwood, correct?
She was quite wroth, but I was only obeying what the mistress asked. I was only doing what she said.
And I can assure you that Mrs. Whitwood's ire is aimed where it belongs at Miss Wyberg, not to yourself. She was, in fact, quite unhappy with the unfairness of the position that you were placed in. And as such, I suppose I'm just trying to understand why Miss Wyberg did not have you attend to your duties.
About a month ago, Miss Wyberg came back from London, and a few days later, she called me in and asked if I would help her with something, some sort of meditation. I'm a Christian woman, so I was hesitant, but she said it was nothing like that. and she offered me an extra coin for the task, and it was to simply have me sit in the library with a blindfold on while she spoke words. And this went on for a while, but it was very strange. It was very, very strange. I became more and more tired as this went on. Like this, whatever this meditation stuff is, it certainly drains one. And
meditation, one should never. It takes it out of you. I can tell you.
But at a certain point, I couldn't perform my duties. I was so tired, and then there was that row with Miss Wentworth, and she left, and then I was there, and I didn't want to do this anymore. I was feeling sick. I was feeling poorly. I thought this was just, I did not know. But she said she needed me to do it one more time. And I agreed to it. And this time, when she did it, the noises and the speaking were louder, and I could hear things shifting. And though she told me not to, I drew off my blindfold. And she was in a terrible state. There was blood on the floor, drawn out. She was in the midst of it, and she herself was barely clothed. And she like pauses, and you can see her mentally edit something out. And she seemed like taken, and it was unnatural. I did not know where the blood came from. I did not know what was going on. So I ran upstairs, and I packed my things, and I fled.
And at the like the point where I see her mentally edit something out, Richard would like to grab hold of her hand, and like leaning close, and like, conspiratorially, like confidentially, say, and what else? You can tell me. You don't need to worry. And I'd like to spend that point of reassurance that I kept saying. No, thank you.
Yes. I said, I told you my position. I mean, I was leaving the employment and rushing out, and without a letter of recommendation, and with Miss Wentworth speaking against me and such. You understand? It was desperate. So she had a book, and I knew it was an old book. It was the one she brought back from London. And I knew who she had bought it from. And I thought it was my fair wage. So I took it. I wrapped it, and when I came here to my sister's, my boyfriend and I took a jaunt down to this bookseller, and I sold it to him. This is the same bookseller she bought it from. It's with him, and I got £1.50 for it.
£1.50, there you go.
quite a bit of money.
Yes, I know. It is quite a bit of money, but I'm afraid only a fraction of what you could have received for it.
He said it was a good price, said it was a fair price.
Well, yes. Those purchasing things will often tell you that they are paying a fair price. Those selling things will also do the same. But you've been most useful.
I can repay the
think you were
money.
well within your right.
I will repay the money if you need me to.
And he'll pat her hand and say, "No, no, I agree with you that this was your fair right." Crispina and Richard thinks to the rules of magic. I forget what those. You know the name of the rules that we agreed to. As
Chatham House rules.
Chatham House rules, and I feel as though Crispina has been playing rather loosely with those rules by involving, and he is internally quite disappointed. Like particularly with the help, people who are under your power in the first place, and B, a young woman who has more to lose than Crispina does without the status. This bookseller, Chessover.
That's his name, yes.
Tell me, what was your impression of Mr. Chessover? A man I know by repute, but not by personal.
He seemed like when you hear somebody say bookseller, you have I get a picture in my mind, and he was very much that, like exactly as I expected. But there was another one there, his assistant. He was a unpleasant, greasy man. Younger, stared at me the whole time.
And the book,
it was in French.
La Rue Dragon.
If you say so, sir.
Mais non. Yeah, I will pay for her cup of tea, and I will give her I will in fact leave the money and say, more than enough money for the cup of tea and the sandwich, and I will say, for your troubles, if you are in need of employment and you find yourself back over towards Oxfordshire, do call me. My offices could always do with a tidy from time to time.
I'll keep that in mind, sir.
It's not not a house, place of business, but trust me that you will. Your reputation will bear no ill marks from this.
And I think with 2 points worth of spend, you can tell that she is like seriously considering that, like that you've definitely reassured her. She definitely, there's a handsome, a sophisticated man who's come and asked her this, so she will nod, and he will leave her in okay spirits.
Yeah. Interesting. As Richard begins probably the train was still the quickest way from Rye, given the lack of motorways at the time. So I will head back on the, I guess fictionally, right? Like I've been away for the day. We had breakfast together. I've gone back, spent the day there. I'll be coming back in the evening.
Come back on the 8:16 or whatever odd time it is. Let's take our second break, our 5, and we'll come back with Arthur. Sound good? So, Dr. Whitewood, what is the excuse or angle that you use for gaining entry to Mr. Winthrop?
Oh, very straightforward. We have a mutual acquaintance with Crispina Weiberg, and I want to see what his reaction to that is.
I think that when you send your card and state that, the housekeeper will come back and will say, "I will see you through."
Thank you. Hand over, hat, gloves, umbrella.
Absolutely. And he's probably in his 70s. You can tell that there's a certain frailty to him. It's the a little cold autumn air outside has made him bundle up in a house coat and several layers beneath that, and you know, a little bit of tweed and house slippers, and he will direct you to sit down, and I'm trying to remember the name of the actor.
Last seen in?
Last scene. Oh gosh. Little spectacles. I'll think of it. But
Toby Young?
Hmm?
Toby Young? Bavarian sound system, Toby Young, The Mist.
Oh no, that would be that. I'll save him. For that gosh. I was gonna say he was in one of the Harry Potter movies, but that's every British actor.
Not oh god, we could no, let's not do this. I was
Yes.
gonna say John Hurt.
Just to say, is it the one who played who was the rat the whole time? Like
No,
the little
no.
Okay, so that was the other guy I
a
was
very
thinking of.
pleasant
Yeah.
faced, a friendly seeming gentleman who has you sit down, and if you've seen Paddington Bear, he played the antique dealer in Paddington Bear.
It's Jim
Broadbent.
Thank you.
Jim Broadbent. I only remember that because that's such a distinctive name. Sit down. Dr. Whitewood, is it? You're up from London?
Yes. And the reason I've come to see you is that I'm a friend of Crispina, and your name often came up in conversation, and so I wanted to drop in and say hello, and I wondered when you last, how often do you see Crispina these days?
Not as often. She has come by and consulted with me about things, but not for some time.
Because that speaks directly to my visit, I think, Mr. Winthrop. She described you as her teacher. Would that seem appropriate?
I perhaps gave her some advice, some teaching, some entry into the esoteric arts, into these ways. Yes.
And in that way, she has become my teacher.
Something has happened, right?
Yes. And I think I'll be entirely honest with him. I know. Let me deploy a bit of mechanic here.
Sure.
I have assess honesty. I want to see whether he is what he seems.
All right. Let's have you make a spend.
Job's a good one. Done.
I think that as you are talking, I think like two things will become clear, even as he's being reassuring and commenting on positively on what you're doing. One is he's already aware that something has happened. And two, he has another agenda somewhere, but not hostile. But he definitely has. There's definitely something else going on there. That feeling of somebody who is reacting in a slightly odd way to what you were saying.
So he already knew, and he has his.
And I think that already knew is he already knew something happened.
Yeah. And I think I'll reflect that back to him. And I say, am I right in thinking that you actually knew that something had happened?
I could tell that there had been an occurrence in the ley lines, and the night was the correct one, so I assumed that she had gone to Radcliffe to perform the ceremony, but it did not feel right.
No, the ceremony went oddly. And I mean, we're describing it as a red dragon or the red dragon.
And that will give him pause. Like, that's clearly information he didn't have, I will say.
Crispina was taken by it. We since have gained a sense that she is being held somewhere. And I think I'm going to go in an egg of some description. And I've come to you because I hope you are as concerned by this as we, her acolytes, are.
No. Crispina has a mission to restore Albion to its glory.
And that is what attracted us to her. We would wish to share that mission. She named us the I'm going to forget, the Illuminated Knights of Albion Transcendent.
Good name.
And thank you, Mr. Winthrop. And that was why we agreed to be inducted as her acolytes. And now you'll understand. We feel,
and when you say we, who is that exactly?
And I will tell him exactly. Mr. Richard Frazier, author, sometimes author, Miss Isabella Grimaldi, an American with a variety of talents, I sense, and someone that Crispina took under her wing, a Wilford Brumble.
Yes, she's spoken of Wilford, that he was a pet project of hers.
A very interesting man.
This is, you can tell, I think, in this without making a spend, that he expected you to say another name, and then kind of slides past when you don't say it. And he says, this is not good. What would have you say that Crispina may have brought this on herself?
And that's where I go next, I think. That there was evidence of a working having taken place in the library before our the ceremony of induction, of enlightenment, if you will, that had involved the spilling of or the perhaps the conjuration of, we don't know, of blood within a circle of power in her library. Which came as a surprise to us, because that she had not mentioned such a thing.
Those are darker workings. Do you say the name of the book?
I think I will.
Okay.
Again, I think Arthur is pretty naive in this. He trusted Crispina. Crispina named this man as her teacher. Therefore, he is equally trustworthy.
And I think you will see him nod, and he stands up, and you'll see him go over to the bookshelf here. You're in his library, not his study. But he pulls off a big book that he brings down, a big book of Blake, and Prince, and he will turn to the picture of the red dragon, one of the there, because there were multiple different versions of it done. And he'll say, "This is I have made a lifelong, in addition to my other esoteric, a lifelong study of Blake, and I can sense that you have followed the path. You have attached yourself to the Zoas. This is good. This is good. What she has done is invoking something more dangerous. I'm actually distantly related to Blake. Just but anyway, in any case, but you know, she shared my vision, Blake's vision of Albion and what it could be. If it is true what you have said,
Absolutely.
then I know where she is.
I'm all ears.
There is a place called Dragon Hill. It is near the Uffington White Horse. But you should not go there. That place, the hill itself is dangerous, and those who control it. You should not go there.
And I guess, to just go slightly meta, the very fact that he says we should not go there is creating in the audience a sense that obviously they must go there.
Right.
But I will share with him the advice that Mrs. Dearman offered us, that were we to seek to rescue Crispina, we would need allies, potent allies, and
do you share what Jenny Greenteeth told you?
I think I will.
We will pause. Struck with dangerous forces. It is well that you were able to do so, but you play a dangerous game. But whatever dangers you face there, compare nothing to what lies behind Dragon Hill. And whatever you do, Dragon Hill itself and those who control it, you should be prepared before you approach.
Can you offer us any advice about that preparation, or might I call again?
You may call again. Absolutely. I will provide what advice I can to you. Absolutely what aid I can to you. I too wish Albion resurrected. I too wish this to happen. Were I 20 years younger, I would be at your side helping with this, but time and tide wait for no man. And this is where I am today. There is a legend about Dragon Hill that Wayland, the fairy smith, he forged the spear that pinned the dragon to that place. If you seek an armament, that may be where you need to go. But I do not know exactly. You will have to look into that.
And I'm putting this together. I seem to remember Jenny Greenteeth suggested that we would need some weapon and armor were we to seek to rescue Crispina.
Entrance, weapon, and armor to protect against the fire. The entrance requiring something else, and certainly beyond that, the gathering power of the ley lines.
Well, one last question on that, I think, before I finish, and that is: does you say the spear was used to pin the dragon to that place?
In legend, that is what is said, yes.
Would that, given what we experienced beneath the Radcliffe camera, is the dragon unleashed?
The dragon is disturbed. and if it is slumbering, it is working to be reborn.
And again, I think that vaguely chimes with something that Mrs. Dearman said to us.
Well, also the egg that you saw too.
Yeah. Sorry, it was Fraser's vision, wasn't it? His.
Yeah.
I will shake his hand warmly, express my undying gratitude for his willingness to discuss these things with me.
Yes, please, you and your companions may call on me at any time. I look very much forward to it.
I will do my best to keep you abreast of our further investigations.
And he will thank you, and he will excuse himself for not rising and seeing you out, but he will have his housekeeper see you out.
Yeah, that's fine. Arthur goes back to Oxford with a spring in his step.
Okay. So we'll cut to a scene of again, we're at Crispina's, if I may. Does that sound good? But I think that in the meantime, it's like someone has come through and cleaned the set. The books are in order. Dust is gone. There are matching cups of tea out in front of you. You know, there's a sugar cube bowl and the thing of milk there, and clearly the atmosphere has changed slightly. Like the curtains are opened a little bit to let the sunlight in as well. And we'll assume that we're like normally I would kind of do a hand wavy thing here, but I do want to get like what the spin is, what the complexion is to how you tell this to the others. Maybe not the full detail. We assume that you give the full details, but like what your spin on it is. So, Isabella, when you describe what happened, what is your take on it? What is it that you are pointing to for the group?
I essentially say Crispina used Von Spalt to get the book for her, clearly. And she intimated that she would buy something from Von Spalt. Von Spalt's hawking some statuary that shackled to something very bad, very, very powerful, very bad. And I think she probably wanted Crispina to buy those, but maybe something else. Maybe she just wanted money. She's disappointed and angry, and I didn't buy those religious figurines, but those should be destroyed. And we probably at some point should try to track down anyone who has purchased them.
Richard, what?
And she does stop and say, I was not posh enough for Ms. Von Spalt, so it would take someone who looks like they have money to maybe get that information from her.
Interesting.
What a terrible snob.
So Van Spal, I wonder if she wants us to, she really wishes us purchased or simply made rendered sellable to others. There is an evil abroad in these statues. Perhaps we can do something for her in return for something else. But so Chris, and I will use that as I will say, but so Van Spal was the one who bought it from Chesover. Strangely enough,
told her where to buy it. Told her that Chesover had it.
Led her to Chesover. So Van Spal was the lead to Chesover. Well, strangely enough, where the book was purchased is where the book has ended. For Alice sought compensation for Crispina's activities with her, and in lieu of her last payment, she took the book and sold it to.
And before you can say so, Arthur says, "You have the book."
No, I'm afraid not, Mr. Whitewood. So Alice took the book and then found a buyer immediately, one Mr. Chesover, the original seller, who has now his copy returned at a bargain price, I might add.
Ouch.
We must obtain the book then, surely.
Yes, yes. I feel I must tell you. I fear the reason that Alice and this whole affair with Miss Whitwood is that Crispina was using Alice as I believe a battery, a fuel, a source of. She was drawing upon Alice to perform the ritual that we see the leavings of there in the library. She was involving a non-practitioner in the work, which is, I admit I'd thought better of her.
That might be a segue to Arthur's enormous excitement and enthusiasm for Mr. Winthrop. Mr. Winthrop has proved enormously helpful and came to that same conclusion when I described the remains of the working we found in the library. He felt Crispina had taken a wrong turn somewhere. But he's a very interesting man. He knows a great deal about all of this and has offered to consult with us on anything related to these matters. It was a most productive trip.
And what would you say was the what could he tell us beyond disapproving of Crispina's work?
Oh, I beg your pardon. No, he told me where she is.
Oh.
And there must be a look around the table. You should have started with that.
Yeah. Set our teacups down. Very hard.
But he told me not to go there. He
Yes.
well, I implied. He implied to me that we're not ready yet. But he gave me a Dragon Hill near Uffington, the Uffington White Horse, and I believe we may have a lead on the weapon that Mrs. Dearman discussed. The Wayland spear, the spear in Mr. Winthrop's words, used to pin the dragon in place. And he fears that the dragon is wakeful, not awake, but wakeful, and needs to be given their rest. They must not be allowed to reemerge.
Well, that was most productive.
Indeed.
I wonder if that is where did I see inside of Dragon Hill?
Well,
Was that what Dragon took out at me?
When I described what you'd seen, that is what prompted him to tell me, that is Dragon Hill, within Dragon Hill.
Well, something for us to look into further, I'm sure. The Wayland Spear as well. Perhaps it is in Mr. I've forgotten the author's name. Perhaps it is in Mr. Thingy's Book of New Jerusalem.
Darcy.
I'd sort of stop and go, oh God, finding anything in that.
Well,
I have in fact found it, of course. The Uffington.
Yeah, because you have search.
Yes. I was just thinking Control F was the preview, was not in the Victorian.
It is your first magic spell.
Yes.
But it seems to be that the directions we could travel in multiply exponentially.
Yes. Do we pursue Ashby Wake and discover perhaps what Crispina wished there? Do we go to London and chase down Mr. Chess over and indeed the book of the Red Dragon?
A lot of what we're missing is what got Crispina set on this road to do this thing. It seems ill-conceived. But maybe the people at Ashby Wake can tell us what her correspondence was, who she was speaking to, or at least what something else that was part of her investigations. This is very strange.
I think we do need to secure the book. Did we get a kind of timeline for when Alice left? Because I'm just wondering
a couple
how
weeks
long.
ago.
Okay, so it's been with Chessover for several weeks.
Yeah.
We need to know if we can buy it, if we can't buy it, who he sold it to. Because that book seems to be central to whatever working Crispina was undertaking. It may give us a clue to why she was involved in such dubious workings.
I would
Yeah.
like to think that this is part of a plan and she trusted us, but then there's other parts of it that seem so rash and strange.
Yes, and I mean, I should share that while I believe Mr. Winthrop is honest and above board, I'm sure he has reasons of his own for wanting us to continue to correspond with him.
Mm.
I assume you mentioned the absent fifth name.
Oh, yes. Sorry, I didn't make a note of that. Yes, he seemed to think that there would be another person inducted into. I didn't press it because I felt that there were more pressing matters to consider. But it might be something we want to raise with him in the past. Did Crispina mention another person to any of us?
Let's see here.
Was there anyone who was peripherally involved when she drew us together or began to talk to us individually, I wonder?
Isabella, would you like to make a chemistry spend?
Yes, I would happily do that. Here I am embarking my chemistry. I had no idea chemistry would come in. But yes.
There is a thing where you're thinking, when you first met Crispina and she was talking about people and she mentioned a number of people, including, Richard and Arthur and so on and stuff. And you were talking about, what your experience was. And she said, and now it kind of twigs for you, that she knew a professor of chemistry at Oxford. And I think this is the point at which you put two and two together and will realize that his name was Winthrop. I think she just mentioned him once, and I think probably had been niggling at you, like you were like, okay, that, and now you put two and two together.
So is that the name of her sponsor? Wasn't his name Winthrop?
But he's not a professor of chemistry at Oxford.
Oh. All right.
Perhaps Mr. Winthrop's son? Oh.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think a quick look in the directory will show Sebastian Winthrop.
Okay.
Professor of chemistry. Or teaches chemistry at Oxford.
And interesting.
Merton College.
Oh, of course. She kind of makes a face. All right. And I'll go, oh, well, then maybe Sebastian Winthrop, the professor of chemistry. Just an offhand remark. It's the only thing I can think of. But had you ever heard that name?
No, but with Mr. Winthrop. I suppose if there was if Crispina and the Mr. Winthrop are close, then she would also know this Sebastian Winthrop, whatever relation they may be, and perhaps he was meant to be this fifth member of our order that we've never met.
Interesting.
Well, can I suggest? I mean, I can't imagine what I'd talk to a professor of chemistry about, to be honest. But one of us needs to visit Professor Winthrop. One of us needs to secure the book. And one of us needs to find out what they can about Ashby Wake, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll go to see the professor.
Richard?
I fancy a trip to the bookshop.
Then perhaps Mr. Brumble and I might set off for Ashby Wake.
We can join you after we've taken care of other things.
I'm just going to check what. Yes, Ashby Wake is the beast, isn't it? Yes,
Mhm.
I think I'd feel much more comfortable if Mr. Brumble came with me in
Yes.
pursuit of a beast.
I mean, it was me thinking I'd feel much more comfortable going to the dodgy booksellers of London with an army vet in my back pocket.
I
mean,
am going
it's
to
just a bookshop.
So I am going to meta hard frame here,
Okay.
just because of the things. What I think I'd actually like to do is next time we'll do the quick scene with Sebastian, because that's easily enough done, and then probably a jaunt with the whole group to London, and then to Ashby, sort of as the setup. Does that feel right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's interesting stuff with Chessover, though it could go quick, it could go slow. So sound good?
Yeah, I think whenever you're framing like a sprawling investigation, right? Like we're always going to renegotiate like how far the elastic of a sling
exactly.
go, right? Without taking over a whole session of like we're all in completely different parts of the country doing
Yeah,
completely different parts.
Feel free to do that, Lowell. I think is
Yeah.
what we're giving you permission to do.
I'll give everybody a build point for in-process case.
Shall I add one to Wilford just for
Yes, please.
reasons of carefulness?
Care.
Care? Better.
Yeah. And you may refresh 1 point of one of your investigation abilities. And so we know what we've got set up for next time. We'll kind of keep that as the agenda unless something drastically changes. That will allow me to plan out a little bit. And we'll take up from there. I would like to do a quick stars and wishes, things you liked, things you want to see more of, things you want to see less of, all of that. So Dr. Whitewood.
I've just been great fun. I'm enjoying Arthur. I'm enjoying that we seem to have so many proliferating leads. I'm definitely thinking we need a threat board somehow. So no, I'm having a great time. I've enjoyed the way we're running across the social gamut, from the slightly dishonest or at least hard done by maid through to someone who I am beginning to frame as an almost magus in the form of Edgar Winthrop. And that's digging into myth and legend in really interesting ways. So I'm just having a good time in terms of stars. Thanks all. Wishes? I don't know. I quite enjoyed, us seeing a little bit of the character's backstory in the sense of our connections with other people, with our sources of stability. We learned a bit about Arthur's background. We learned quite a lot, I think, about Richard's brother. And I'm fascinated by the kind of stage magicians. Builder mechanic played by Michael Caine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll have to get pictures for everybody there on all of this. Awesome. Sherry?
Um, it was a lot of fun. I love when investigators split up and go and have conversations, and it's a way to get the information without like you can't like put yourself in there and ask other questions and add confusion to it. So it's a nice clean through line of getting that information in the pace and the method of the other investigators. So it makes it, I don't know, more like a good book. It's very fun. So and yeah, I love we could use a board. We're getting lots of clues and things that we need to remember and follow up on. And it is a little complicated because you get the spatial sense of what's going on. It's actually kind of important to the story. So yeah, maps and maps of all sorts.
And I'm definitely throwing some threads out there and some names and stuff that, like, if later on you decide to go and look up, and we'll go there and look at that, there's a lot of seeding going on that is not necessarily, oh, we have to do this, but some options for choices. Any wishes?
Sorry, can I just add? Can I just add a star on that? I thought it was really nice to have our first genuinely sinister individual in the shape of Melody van Spoel.
And she's Dutch. We had some Belgians over, and they made that a running joke about the Dutch. They were described as the people that took the last cookie. That was how they described them.
The cookie of shame.
Yes, cookie of shame. Any wishes, Sherry?
Actually, I just think more of the same. I'm really enjoying the investigation aspect, and the characters are awesome, and it's delicious.
Awesome. And Mr. Fraser.
Yeah, I really enjoyed all of us splitting up to do. So I enjoy obviously all of the seeds and all of those things. I would love to spend some. I guess that's moving on to wishes, but I would love to spend a little bit of time doing that sort of like prep work intel, because in the time given, you sort of rush towards actually speaking directly to the NPCs rather than checking them out beforehand. But as we go on, I'm seeing loads of things that would be on some level in some regard of the public record, right? Like even some of the stuff of like Port Mayor, like and that Comte and the plane crash and etc. Like to just sort of spend some time like.
Maybe that's a good once around at the start of next session, is letting everybody like say, okay, in the meantime, I've been looking in, who is this person? Like do a background check on one thing or person to get more details on.
And all of the occult and esoterica, right, that we look up as well, like the Wayland Spear and stuff like that, like which are things that the big occult nerds that we clearly are, we have to we would know at least where to look to find out such things, right? But yeah, and also because a big star on having different threads to pursue is you increasingly you're like Ashby Wake, and then you keep pulling on your real more threads, and I'm like, oh, I mean, I actually don't have Ashby Wake's lower on my list, and it's more of those like. The longer we leave it, the more the less in keeping it seems to even remember it. Whereas, like it is a thing. It's the cup runneth over problem, which is quite nice.
Right.
To have too many options to go to. I agree entirely with Arthur that the book and chess over is, but I suppose that was me meta slightly and being like, well, I don't want to interrupt the momentum towards Ashby Wake by saying, let's go to London and do that instead. But yeah. And more of the same, Lowell. Like I'm really looking forward to more of it. I'm looking forward, of course, as always, I will always restate the wish for more magic. Because
excellent.
Look how fun it was when I spent mine.
And make sure you give me a heads up like a couple of weeks ahead of time when your trip is the sessions that you'll be gone, because we'll plan around that. There's also we'll check. I can't remember if there's a time change in March. but we'll adjust it so that it will remain on the same time for you all. Okay, just so that you know that.
That's very kind of you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, thank you all very much. I'm going to stop the recording.